Matilda Reynolds never imagined that earning $21 an hour would come with so many responsibilities. Managing subcontractors' schedules, ordering materials, overseeing budgets, leading meetings with engineers and homeowners associations, and training crews on new product installations, it was all on her shoulders. Yet her title remained project manager, and her paycheck barely matched the weight she carried. 6 years ago, Matilda knew nothing about construction. No formal education, no family in the industry. Just relentless grit and a stubborn belief that hard work would pay off. She started hauling materials and cleaning job sites, not because it was glamorous, but because she needed a job and was eager to learn. Every night after work, she devoured tutorials, manuals, and blueprints, arriving early and staying late, asking questions others wouldn't. 2 years in, Matilda was promoted to foreman. Pride swelled within her, and she thought her breakthrough had come. Around that time, she began dating the owner's son, a relationship outside of work. Genuine and grounding. He was the first to tell her, "You deserve more." Those words stuck. Her chance came managing a modest renovation for a 120-unit condo complex. What was meant to be a small patch-up turned into a $2.7 million contract. Thanks to her meticulous budgeting, safety focus, and clear communication, the Homeowners Association loved her. They'd cycled through 5 contractors in 3 years. And she was the reason they finally trusted the company again. She wore every hat: superintendent, billing coordinator, field manager, tech trainer, yet her pay remained that of a glorified intern. Promises of raises and recognition lingered in the air like distant hopes. While she juggled a multi-million-dollar project on a shoestring wage, Matilda was working harder than ever. Invisible yet indispensable. But inside, a quiet storm was brewing, a decision was forming. Matilda's world began to shift the moment the first condo project wrapped up. The WA board's glowing praise turned into a golden recommendation that secured a $3 million follow-up contract for her company, an opportunity that should have been her crowning achievement. Instead, it became a crucible revealing the bitter truth beneath her seemingly unstoppable climb. She was no longer just the project lead, Matilda was the face of the operation. The board called her directly. Engineers deferred to her judgment. Subcontractors waited on her go-ahead before lifting a single hammer. Every day, she juggled a dozen hats: scheduling, budgeting, training, managing, troubleshooting, while working 12-hour days, driving her own truck, covering expenses, and solving problems that belonged to others. But her paycheck? It hadn't moved. The promise of a raise, dangled for over a year, remained as elusive as ever. Matilda kept telling herself to be patient. That recognition would come in time. Yet each month, the silence grew heavier, louder, suffocating. Then came the company-wide meeting she'd anticipated but dreaded. Her project was the highlight of the year, under budget, ahead of schedule, safety records pristine. The owner, her boyfriend's father, beamed as he praised the work, waving reports that carried her name and numbers. Applause filled the room. Some looked her way with nods of respect. Minutes later, envelopes of Christmas bonuses were distributed. Hers was missing. Initially, she thought it was a mistake, maybe a mix-up. She waited, but nothing came. When she asked, the owner's response was a dagger wrapped in a smile. "You've already been compensated in experience. You should be grateful for the responsibility you've been given at such an early stage." Grateful. Her hands shook as those words hit her. Grateful to be drained dry while being patted like a loyal pet. She said nothing, nodded, and retreated to her truck, staring blankly at the dashboard for an hour. She realized then, she wasn't just underpaid. She was being used. Worse, it wasn't some faceless corporation exploiting her, it was family. The man who toasted her birthday, who sat beside her at dinner, who asked when they'd make it official. The same man who wielded her loyalty like leverage. Questions plagued her. Was the relationship real? Or just another tool in their arsenal? Lines blurred. Respect vanished. That day, something inside Matilda quietly snapped. She kept running the site, wearing her hard hat, motivating the crew, dealing with inspectors, calming frustrated homeowners, outwardly professional, inwardly consumed by frustration and fury. She was the backbone of a multi-million-dollar project, yet paid less than junior assistants elsewhere. Her truck was her office, her phone bill paid for company calls. Worst of all, silence was mistaken for consent. The WA board was thrilled and often credited her for their renewed trust in the company. But back at the office, recognition was absent, replaced by mounting demands. When the WA extended a bid invitation for the next $3 million phase, they requested Matilda by name. Her detailed scopes and timelines were in the bid package, but inside the company, during a leadership huddle, her name was barely mentioned. "We'll keep it lean," the owner said. "Matilda knows the site inside out. No need to bring anyone else." Matilda felt like a budget line item, not a person. That afternoon, she knocked on the owner's office door and laid it out plainly: the promised raise, the scope of her duties, market salary data showing she was paid less than half what peers earned. She wasn't begging. She wanted to know if the company saw her as an asset or free labor with a smile. The owner didn't flinch. "What you're gaining in knowledge and experience," he preached, "is more valuable than any salary. You're investing in your future. You're becoming indispensable." Indispensable? To whom? The man who withheld a Christmas bonus? The company that called her family until money came into play? "You're like a daughter to me," he added, guilt dripping from every word. Matilda left his office with blood boiling. When she told her boyfriend, she expected support. Instead, he sighed. "My dad's old school. You know how he is." She realized with horror he'd known all along, and chose silence. That night, lying awake, replaying sacrifices and missed moments, she understood the harsh truth. She'd allowed others to define her worth. The next morning, she dusted off her resume for the first time in years. Something clicked. She wasn't hoping anymore. She was watching, calculating, ready. Within a week, recruiters came calling. Her 6 years of solo, multi-million-dollar project experience, backed by glowing client reviews, finally got noticed. One offer stood out: $80 salary, full benefits, paid time off, quarterly bonuses, company truck, laptop, mobile Wi-Fi, and remote work options. She read the offer 3 times before tears came, not from overwhelm, but relief. For the first time, she felt truly seen. The hiring manager said, "You were never the problem, Matilda. You were just in the wrong place." The validation hit hard, but Matilda didn't quit immediately. One last act remained. On Friday morning, she printed the offer and placed it in a sealed envelope. Walking into the office, she slid it across her soon-to-be ex-boss's desk. "Read it," she said, color drained from his face. "This is a lot," he stammered. "I earned it," she replied. He begged for more time, promising restructuring. Too late. Respect doesn't come on layaway. Matilda handed in her resignation, calm, factual, final. 2 weeks later, she told the WA president she wouldn't manage the next phase. He paused, then said, "You're the reason we stuck with this company. I need to speak with your bosses." The ground shifted. The company panicked. The owner couldn't meet her eyes. Damage control meetings behind closed doors. The empire was cracking. Matilda's last day arrived. Colleagues threw a modest goodbye lunch, stories, laughter, tears. Even the co-owner admitted, "You deserved more." Her boyfriend and she parted ways. Sometimes heartbreak isn't betrayal, it's silence. Matilda moved on, free, proud, empowered. 2 months later, her new company won the bid for the next phase, over $3.5 million. The WA trusted her and the company that valued her. Matilda's story spread. She realized, you don't need to prove your worth to those who won't see it. Sometimes, walking away with your head high is the strongest statement. Matilda thought the hardest part was behind her, quitting a job where she was undervalued and betrayed. She had landed a new position that recognized her worth and offered respect, fair pay, and benefits. But life, as it often does, had more challenges in store. Just weeks after starting at her new company, Matilda was assigned to a project site just 30 minutes from the condo complex she'd managed for years. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her old company was working a smaller job across the street, desperately clinging to scraps of business. One afternoon, her phone rang. It was the president of the WA board from the condo complex. "We've officially signed with a new firm for the next phase," he said. "You won't believe who won the bid." Matilda laughed. Curiosity piqued. "Try me." Her smile faded as he said the new company's name, her new company. She hadn't even been involved in the proposal. The regional bidding team had handled it independently. "Why the switch?" she asked. The board president's voice was calm but resolute. "Because we trust you, and we trust the company that saw your value when the last one didn't." That quiet vote of confidence hit harder than any public statement. No dramatic announcement, no press release, just a silent shift in power. Matilda was brought on as an advisor for the new $3.5 million project. A full circle moment that left her humbled and determined. But the fallout from her departure rippled far beyond that job site. Word spread fast throughout the local construction and real estate circles. Clients began asking questions about her old employer's operations. Subcontractors hesitated to commit. Several reached out on LinkedIn, curious about potential opportunities with her new firm. Matilda realized her reputation preceded her, and that reputation was a powerful currency. Meanwhile, at her former company, chaos reigned. The owners scrambled to fill the void she left behind. Meetings ran late, blame was cast, and trust with the WA board fractured. The man who once claimed she was like a daughter avoided eye contact. The business partner blamed ego and poor decisions, lamenting how personal pride had cost them millions. But Matilda felt detached from their unraveling. Her focus was on the future. On her first day advising the new project, she arrived early, feeling the weight of history but carrying a renewed sense of purpose. The same halls, the same sights, the same faces, but this time, she was empowered, recognized, and respected. She led meetings with confidence, offering insights and guidance that propelled the project forward. The board's trust was unwavering. Her advice was sought and valued. One afternoon, after a productive walkthrough, a young crew member approached her. "Ms. Reynolds, it's inspiring to see someone fight for their worth and win," he said shyly. Matilda smiled, feeling the full circle of her journey, from overlooked laborer to respected leader. But the unexpected wasn't done with her yet. One morning, she received an anonymous package at her new office. Inside was a folder containing documents, contracts, emails, internal memos, revealing questionable practices at her former company. Skimming through, she saw evidence of under-the-table payments, falsified reports, and unsafe working conditions covered up. The realization hit hard. The system she'd escaped was corrupt far beyond her personal experience. Faced with a choice, Matilda wrestled with the consequences. Reporting this could jeopardize relationships, spark legal battles, and expose her to retaliation. But her values were clear. She reached out to trusted contacts, including the WA president and regulatory authorities. Together, they launched an investigation into the company's practices. The story quickly became headline news in local papers. The company faced fines, audits, and contract cancellations. Matilda, however, was hailed as a whistleblower, not for revenge, but for integrity. Her courage inspired others who had been silenced. Through it all, Matilda stayed focused on building a future defined by fairness, transparency, and respect. Her new company thrived, fueled by clients and employees who valued dignity and accountability. Matilda's unexpected journey, from exploitation and silence to empowerment and leadership, became a beacon of hope in an industry ripe for change. She often reflected on the hardest lesson she learned. Sometimes, the battles we fear most lead to the greatest breakthroughs. And sometimes, the unexpected moments become the turning points that define our legacy. After the storm of betrayal and the hard decision to leave, Matilda found herself standing at a crossroads, not just in her career, but in her entire perspective on life and self-worth. The experiences she'd endured cracked open her old beliefs and allowed something new and powerful to emerge. A clearer understanding of who she was and what she truly deserved. For years, Matilda had believed that loyalty and patience would eventually be rewarded, that hard work alone guaranteed success. But her harsh reality showed otherwise. She had been exploited, minimized, and dismissed, despite carrying the backbone of multi-million-dollar projects. This painful awakening forced her to reconsider everything she thought she knew about value, respect, and her own voice. It became clear that waiting for validation from others, especially those who saw her only as a tool, was a trap. Real power, she realized, comes from recognizing your own worth and having the courage to claim it. No one else's opinion could define her unless she allowed it. With this new perspective, Matilda began setting boundaries, not as acts of defiance, but as acts of self-respect. She understood that family or loyalty were not licenses for mistreatment or manipulation. She refused to let affection be twisted into a leash that held her back. This shift in mindset gave her the freedom to reclaim control over her narrative. She was no longer the silent worker bee hoping to be noticed. She was a confident woman who knew what she deserved and was unafraid to demand it. Matilda also reevaluated her relationships. especially the one with her boyfriend. She realized that love cannot thrive in the shadows of silence and complacency. The quiet complicity she had once tolerated was itself a kind of betrayal, one that cut deeper than anger. With clarity, she accepted that some people simply could not support your growth, and sometimes letting go is the only way to grow stronger. Professionally, Matilda's perspective evolved from survival mode to leadership. She no longer viewed her role as merely managing projects but as an opportunity to shape culture, inspire others, and advocate for fairness in an industry rife with inequities. She began mentoring younger women and newcomers, sharing her story candidly to empower them to speak up and recognize their own worth early. She championed policies that valued transparency, respect, and inclusion, determined to create a workplace where no one would feel invisible or undervalued. Matilda embraced vulnerability as a strength rather than a weakness. She learned to ask for help, to delegate, and to foster collaboration rather than bearing burdens alone. This transformation made her a more effective leader, respected not just for her expertise but for her empathy and authenticity. She also took better care of herself, balancing her intense work ethic with moments of rest, reflection, and joy. This holistic approach renewed her creativity and resilience, allowing her to face challenges with calm determination. As her new company grew, so did her influence. She was invited to speak at industry panels and conferences, where her story resonated deeply with audiences hungry for real change. Matilda realized that her true legacy would not be measured solely by the size of contracts or profit margins, but by the lives she touched and the barriers she helped dismantle. In quiet moments, she reflected on the irony of it all. The very obstacles meant to break her had become the forge that strengthened her spirit. The betrayal that once felt like a death sentence had, in fact, been a catalyst for rebirth. And with this clarity, Matilda no longer feared the future. She welcomed it, because now, she stood not as a victim of circumstance, but as a pioneer of her own destiny, empowered, unapologetic, and unstoppable. After reclaiming her confidence and redefining her worth, Matilda stepped into a new chapter filled with promise and challenge. The scars of her past fueled her ambition, not as a burden, but as a powerful reminder of what she was capable of overcoming. Her new company embraced her fully. They recognized not just her skills but her leadership and vision. The offer she received, a substantial salary, benefits, and respect, was only the beginning. Here was a place that valued her voice and gave her the platform to soar. Almost immediately, Matilda was entrusted with overseeing a series of high-profile projects, including a regional redevelopment that demanded precision, innovation, and diplomacy. This wasn't just about managing timelines and budgets anymore, it was about shaping communities and leaving lasting impacts. With her deep experience and renewed perspective, Matilda transformed how these projects were run. She fostered transparency between stakeholders, ensuring homeowners' voices were heard and respected. She introduced innovative scheduling and reporting systems that improved efficiency and reduced conflicts. Her team flourished under her leadership. She championed mentorship programs, encouraging young women to pursue careers in construction and project management. She cultivated a culture where collaboration replaced competition, where diversity was celebrated, and where every member felt valued. But Matilda's vision extended beyond individual projects. She dreamed of reshaping an entire industry long plagued by inequity and exploitation. To that end, she began networking with industry leaders, advocacy groups, and local governments. She became a vocal proponent of fair labor practices, equitable pay, and inclusive hiring. Through speaking engagements and panels, she shared her journey candidly, turning her story of struggle into a beacon of hope and change. Matilda also spearheaded partnerships with vocational schools and community organizations, creating pipelines to train and empower the next generation of construction professionals from underrepresented backgrounds. Her work attracted attention from investors eager to support companies that blended profit with purpose. New funding allowed her to expand her team, invest in cutting-edge technology, and launch community outreach programs. One particularly rewarding project involved revitalizing a neglected neighborhood park. Matilda collaborated closely with residents to design a space that honored their heritage and needs. The project became a symbol of community empowerment, showcasing how construction could be a tool for social good. Throughout these successes, Matilda remained grounded. She knew that real change took time and persistence. She celebrated every small victory but never lost sight of the larger goal: to create workplaces where respect and fairness were the norm, not the exception. Her personal life, once shadowed by doubt and disappointment, blossomed as well. Matilda surrounded herself with supportive friends and mentors who celebrated her achievements and lifted her during challenges. She learned to set boundaries and prioritize her well-being without guilt. Looking back, Matilda understood that every setback, every betrayal, was a crucial step toward this moment. The hardships had forced her to grow, to sharpen her purpose, and to find strength within herself she hadn't known existed. Now, with every project she led and every life she touched, Matilda was building more than structures, she was building legacy. Legacy not just measured in concrete and steel, but in trust rebuilt, voices amplified, and futures transformed. As Matilda's new career flourished, so did her growth, not just as a project manager, but as a leader, mentor, and visionary. The challenges she had faced left an indelible mark on her character, shaping a woman who understood that true strength came not only from technical skill but from emotional intelligence and integrity. At first, Matilda's drive was fueled by a fierce determination to prove herself, to erase the doubts sown by years of being undervalued. But over time, she realized that leadership was far more complex and nuanced than simply being the best. It demanded empathy, humility, and the courage to be vulnerable. One of the hardest lessons she learned was how to let go of control. Having been burdened with countless responsibilities and feeling the weight of expectations, Matilda had developed a habit of micromanaging every detail. Yet she understood that sustainable leadership required trust in her team, trust in their abilities, and trust in the collective mission. She began cultivating a culture where mistakes were not punished but seen as opportunities for learning. She encouraged open communication, where feedback flowed freely in all directions. This shift not only improved morale but also unlocked creativity and innovation within her teams. Matilda became deeply committed to mentorship. She remembered her own journey, how daunting it was to navigate an industry dominated by seasoned men, without a roadmap or advocates. Determined to ease that path for others, she created formal programs offering guidance, support, and resources to young women and minorities entering the construction field. Her leadership style was authentic and inclusive. She was not afraid to share her story of struggles and setbacks, inspiring others to persevere. Her openness forged bonds of trust and respect that transcended titles and hierarchies. Matilda also sharpened her ability to navigate complexity. Managing large-scale projects meant balancing competing interests, budgets, timelines, regulations, personalities, and unforeseen crises. Her calm under pressure and strategic thinking earned her a reputation as a reliable and visionary leader. Beyond work, Matilda focused on personal growth. She embraced self-care practices, understanding that her well-being was vital to her effectiveness. She sought balance, carving out time for family, friendships, and passions outside construction. This holistic approach fueled her resilience and creativity. Matilda's journey taught her about the power of forgiveness and letting go, not to forget the past, but to free herself from its chains. She reconciled with the pain caused by broken relationships, choosing peace over bitterness. Her evolving perspective shaped how she measured success. It was no longer solely about contracts won or dollars managed but about impact, the lives uplifted, the careers nurtured, the culture changed. Matilda became a sought-after speaker and advocate, using her platform to champion equity, transparency, and ethical practices in construction and beyond. She mentored rising stars who now referred to her as a role model and trailblazer. Her influence extended into shaping policies and industry standards, working with organizations dedicated to diversity and inclusion. She believed that sustainable progress required systemic change alongside individual courage. As her confidence deepened, Matilda also cultivated patience and gratitude. She acknowledged every challenge as a teacher and every victory as a collective achievement. Standing on the cusp of her next chapter, Matilda understood that growth was an ongoing journey. The woman who once felt invisible and powerless now radiated strength, compassion, and unwavering purpose. She had become not just a leader in construction but a beacon of hope for anyone striving to rise above injustice and claim their rightful place. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and quiet determination led Matilda Reynolds to a place few dared to imagine, not just professional success, but a profound personal triumph that transcended any paycheck or job title. Her story was no longer one of silent suffering or overlooked talent, but of resilience, courage, and a legacy forged through relentless grit. The day the news broke that her new company had won the $3.5 million bid for the next phase of the condo renovation, a project she once managed, felt like a full-circle moment. It wasn't merely a business win, it was validation, a public acknowledgement of her worth, her expertise, and her unwavering commitment. Matilda had walked away from a toxic environment, refusing to settle for crumbs and empty promises. In doing so, she disrupted the status quo and challenged an industry long resistant to change. Her departure sent ripples through the local construction scene, forcing conversations about fairness, respect, and the true value of labor. But Matilda's victory was not born from bitterness or revenge. It grew from a quiet, steady fire inside her, a refusal to be defined by others' perceptions and a fierce belief in her own potential. She had become more than a project manager, she was a leader inspiring change. Her journey inspired countless women and men who had felt invisible in their workplaces. Through speaking engagements, mentorship programs, and advocacy, Matilda shared not just her story, but the lessons she learned. That worth is not given, it is claimed. That silence is complicity, and that sometimes walking away is the bravest act of all. The transformation wasn't easy. It demanded sacrifices, lost relationships, long nights, and moments of doubt. Yet, each challenge honed her strength and clarity. Matilda's leadership style evolved into one marked by empathy and inclusivity. She cultivated teams where everyone felt seen, heard, and valued. Her projects didn't just build structures, they built communities. One of her proudest moments came during the opening of a new community center she helped oversee, a space designed with input from residents, meant to serve as a hub for education and connection. The ribbon-cutting ceremony wasn't just a celebration of bricks and mortar, it was a testament to what happens when leadership centers people, not just profits. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Matilda found peace in reclaiming her personal life. She nurtured friendships that had been neglected, explored passions that fed her soul, and allowed herself the grace to rest and recharge. Looking back, Matilda understood that the true victory lay in the journey, from being undervalued and unseen to standing tall as an architect of change. Her story became a beacon for anyone who had been told they weren't enough. A reminder that the power to transform lives starts within. She often reflected on a phrase that had become her mantra: if they don't see your value, stop arguing, start walking. Someone else will recognize what they were too blind to appreciate. Matilda's walk was not just away from a job or a person, it was toward a future where respect, equity, and integrity weren't optional, but fundamental. Her legacy was still being written, but the foundation was clear, a legacy of courage, conviction, and compassion. And for Matilda Reynolds, that was the greatest success of all. Matilda's journey reveals a powerful truth: your value is not defined by others' recognition or the titles they assign you. True worth comes from knowing your strengths, setting boundaries, and having the courage to walk away when respect and fairness are denied. Her story teaches us that patience has limits, and loyalty should never be a leash. Sometimes, the bravest act is to stop hoping for change from those unwilling to change and instead create your own path where your talents are celebrated. Most importantly, Matilda shows us that setbacks and betrayals are not the end, they can be catalysts for growth, clarity, and renewal when met with resilience and self-belief. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.